So in this example, I'm going to do the root, and then I'm going to jump to the root and then play. That makes musical sense, okay? And then the next chord in our progression is another 5th string root, but in this case, it's from the A form, so that means we're going to be playing a D shape right here. And this will be back to the internal 4 strings of the guitar, so it makes pretty much sense just to go. Okay? So just like the C form, we just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same thing on the D chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Okay, now, let's go ahead and take a look at the progression as it's coming together here. These are the chords that we've written out here, and you can also notice I've got the tablature underneath it to show you. Okay, but remember, we're going to do each of these patterns twice. Okay, so we're going to put this pattern over here twice in this bar. Okay, so in reality, to be clear about this, let's go ahead and write what it really is. It's a 12/8 pattern. That's actually the best way to write that. Okay, so we're going to put this in here twice, so it's going to be 12/8 notes. Okay? Now, as you see, when we get to the rest of the progression, you'll see now the chords start to get closer together. So you might be going, well, what do you do there? Well, what you're going to do is just move through the arpeggio patterns quickly. You're going to go C major. That's 6 notes. Then you have to go to an A7 chord, and you can choose any variety of A7 chords you want. You could stay in the open A position and go and play an open A7 chord. Right? That would make sense because now you still have the internal 4 strings you're working with, so the pattern would be very consistent. You could stay here for D minor. Here's an interesting concept. Now you have an open D minor position. What do you do here? Start from the root and go up the top 4 strings. Right? And then go down to the G7 chord that we know. And once again, I'd play from the low 6th string, and then I'd skip over the A string and go up to the 4th string. Right? And then we're back to C. And then down to the G again. Okay? So you sort of have to take what I've written here behind me and apply it to the progression, and you can be fairly spontaneous with it too. You don't always just have to stick to the open C shape here. If you want to practice moving it around, that would be good too. You could go to the C chord here. You could also go to the C chord here. Or you could start from the middle of the chord here on the 4th string. And that gives you a brighter sound and not as much of the bass sound, but it still sounds like an arpeggio part. Okay, so let's try a few of these out and see what they sound like, okay? And I'll play the examples here pretty literally so you can hear what they're going to sound like. And I want you to play along with me. Okay, here we go. Starting with C. Okay, with a 1-bar intro. 3, 4. Again. Okay, great. Okay, so that brought us up to the bridge. The bridge is the B section on my chart. So You'll notice that the first time through, I actually played I played a variation of the things that I'd shown you the first time through right here. But then on the second time, I went back to the exact thing that I showed you. So you probably caught that. You busted me on it, but that's okay. You can do a variety of chord voicings over the neck as you're playing this, just to keep it interesting. Okay, now let's go to the B section. What are we going to do to the B section to make it sound interesting? As a contrasting section, it's good to not play the same thing all the way through a song progression. Sometimes, as good as this sounds, right? That's what it says to do. I'm going to suggest maybe doing something as a variation of the part. Perhaps you could play the arpeggio and also do a strike chord too. You can go. Right? Now what I'm trying to do there is achieve what would essentially be like a secondary guitar part, where another guitar player would go simply, while one person is doing this, another guitar player would go, right? Very simple, but an accent part. So you can kind of combine those together. Okay, so you can try that. It takes a little bit more skill because you have to kind of wind up and hit the chord while you're doing the arpeggio. And the faster you get, that's a little harder to do. Okay, you could also just go, you could just break away from the arpeggio part and just simply play a strum part. And just accent. In fact, that's actually, I think, the best thing to do in our part right now. Let's just break out of the arpeggio part and do a full strum part, but still play in a 12/8 style. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Okay, so we're just a little looser now. So let's start at the bridge and see what that sounds like. Okay, here we go at the top of the bridge. 3, 4. D9. Back to the top. Okay, so there you have it. It's our first example of arpeggio rhythm guitar parts. There's a whole lot more we can do with this, but it's really a good skill to have and important to recognize when it's appropriate and what kind of music it's going to be appropriate for. So it really takes controlled and even right hand picking technique and just a good knowledge of chords and the way that they musically link together when you're doing this kind of stuff. Okay, so really try to focus on melodies when you're putting chords together too. All right, let's practice it one more time on the way out, and I'll see you in the next lesson. All right, and don't get this little guy pissed off, because that's the last thing you want on your butt, is this guy telling you how to practice and what to practice, because he's kind of got a bad attitude, as you can see from looking at him. Okay, here we go. One bar up front. I'll see you next lesson. See ya. 2, 3, 4. All right, see you later.